What is up, everybody? Good morning and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to World of Warcraft. Today we are going to go over my route that I'm using for pugging Ara-Kara. I pug pretty much exclusively during Mythic Plus, so this is something that I have tested plenty of times and just things that you need to be aware of when you're pulling, especially if you're a tank. And yeah, let's just get right into it. So starting off, we're just going to run down this staircase. Always stay behind the tank if you're a DPS. If you're a tank, you can stay mounted up. Just make sure that none of your DPS are tagging mobs. Make sure your healer isn't healing you because they will pull threat unless you're stopping to tag all these mobs on the way through. Lots of pugs will want you to pull absolutely everything, including these two attendants, into Ixen right here and pop Lust. If that's the vibe, go ahead and do it. Personally, I've seen a lot more groups fail this, especially in the early weeks, than are successful with it. So if you want to be a little bit safer, you can save Lust for Avanox, the first boss over here, and you can just go ahead and pull all these non-elites, these two crawlers, with the two attendants over here. Then you really only have to worry about 2 kicks as opposed to 3 with the little mini boss right here. Go ahead and AoE these down, and then pull the 2 crawlers in with Ixen, and you can save Lust for the boss. It'll be a much easier pull, and it's, you know, it can save you time even though you're not necessarily doing everything all at once. So the next pull, after you get this first mini boss down, will be the crawlers in the middle here. So there's going to be these 3 patrolling crawlers that you're going to go ahead and want to kill, and the only kick in this pull is the attendant. This dungeon benefits a ton from paladins and druids, so if you happen to have like any kind of druid or a paladin, they can always dispel the poisons that these crawlers put out. It will change your healers' lives. Additionally, shamans will have poison totem as well, so they can dispel some poisons that these crawlers push out, and you will take significantly less damage on these pulls. Then we're going to go ahead and pull absolutely everything on the outside of the room that we missed, so if there's anything else that you missed or you didn't get quite cleared out, go ahead and grab all the non-elites. Make sure that this room is completely clear. You will need a lot of space for Avanox, especially if your DPS is a little bit lower. It is important to note that the Gossamer volley puddles will eventually go away, but sometimes if people just place them in a really poor situation, melee are going to have a lot of time keeping uptime, so you want to make sure that you have all the space to work with. And I personally like to just stand on the edge and try and drop my Gossamer Weaves either on top of other people's or just very out of the way. So we're not going to do Avanox yet, though. So first mini boss, second mini boss, third mini boss. This attendant can be kind of annoying to get stacked up on top of the mini boss right here. These crawlers will come in very easily. So if you have a knockback, if you have a silence, if you have a DK, you can grip this guy in. But sometimes he'll just like sit around here and just hang there for a while. So just make sure that if you are a DPS or whatever your role is, you are helping get this attendant stacked just so that melee can have maximum uptime on cleave. Go ahead and take out Avanox, and then we're going to go into the Pug Killer section of the group. I haven't actually had too many issues with this, but I like to take this section a lot slower than maybe most people do, just because this key is unbelievably easy to time if you just play it well, if you just do it properly. So we'll go ahead and get this first pull going. These assistants won't really do anything except for the tank, and the web mage is just going to have this poison volley that you need to interrupt. That is number 1. If you have any kicks, I mean, I would just hold them for the poison volleys, use your stops for the other kicks, something like that, and save like stuns or something like that for these stag shells that we'll get to in a second. The Blood Guards will put a 50% damage reduction on all the mobs nearby, so if you are just straight AoEing, you are going to notice that you are not doing very much damage. So go ahead and try and be ethical. If you have funnel, go ahead and funnel into the Blood Guard, make sure that he dies, and then everything else will go down quickly after him. This is where I like to split up these pulls. I know a couple people like to do bigger pulls right here, but unless you have a DK or some consistent stuns or maybe some kind of communication, I would never pull two stag shells in the same pull. So I go ahead and grab this first stag shell and this assistant because the assistant will move freely and you can always just drag it on top of the stag shell, kill the stag shell, and then even if the assistant is still alive, you can go ahead and go into this next pull the Blood Guard with it, and focus down the other stag shell. They need to be stunned, gripped, moved, anything like that. They can't be kicked, so just make sure you're doing this. If one of these stag shell casts go off, these shrills, then you are just going to summon a ton of adds, and it's probably going to be a wipe if you're doing any key that is even remotely challenging. Again, go ahead and focus the Blood Guard and go ahead and interrupt the Web Mage Novas here. I also like to do this as kind of a rule. You don't pull more than like 2 Web Mages, especially with Pugs, just because it can get really, really messy unbelievably quick. So even if it feels like you're taking this really, really slow, maybe just take out the Web Mage, make sure this whole pull dies before you go ahead and pull these 2. Then you only have to worry about the 2 Web Mage kicks. So we'll go into pull number 9 here. Again, focusing the Stag Shell, making sure that that cast never goes off, and then saving our kicks for the Venom Volley. So very, very simple. Again, these assistants aren't going to do very much, so we can safely do that. And you're always free to chain pull this or something like that, unless you have a Sin Rogue, then let the Rogue stealth. But you can go ahead and pull these. I like to pull after the Stag Shell is of course dead, obviously, and then maybe 1 or both of the Web Mages are dead, just to keep it nice and safe, because you will be pulling 2 more Web Mages in this pull 10 and another Stag Shell. So you just want to make sure that you can priority damage the Stag Shell, make sure he dies, and then you only need to kick 2 things as opposed to 3 things. Especially in Pugs, people will overlap their kicks. It's just going to happen. Once pull 10 is dead, we'll grab these little non-elites that don't do anything over on the right-hand side here and pull them into the Stag Shells and the Web Mage here. If you don't do anything to this Web Mage, if you don't CC him at all, he's just going to channel. He's pretty much useless. So you can just cleave him down, and then obviously focus the Stag Shells, still make sure that their cast does not go off. Blood Guard here, be ethical, do single target damage, funnel into him. You could even like take the Blood Workers into boss if you really wanted to. But the Blood Guard needs to die. That 50% damage reduction is going to prevent you from even killing the Blood Workers pretty fast anyway. So go ahead and take him out. We will do a Noob Zect. Just make sure that if you're tanking and you're doing Eye of the Storm, don't move him too much at one time. The Eye of the Storm kind of follows you as the tank, so if you just bolt it across the room, your DPS might get caught in the storm, and that is not something you want. And obviously interrupt the Web Mages, but yeah, that is the hard part of the dungeon, in my opinion. I think this whole hallway and this boss is really, really difficult for Pugs. So if you get through there, you're kind of home free to some degree. Never mind, this boss is kind of annoying. But yeah, going into this next hallway, we're going to go up over here. We're going to take this little staircase, and we are going to grab the Overseer and pull him right onto this first little part. There's going to be these carriers that are going to fly around the whole area. As you can see, that's their patrol path, so you're probably going to end up pulling these with the first pull. Just make sure that you are dodging the webs, and this pull can get a little bit chaotic. Just make sure that you are dispelling the tank at the right time so that the tank can move out of the web blasts. And then the Overseer will do another Venom Volley, and that is number 1 priority to kick. Can stop over on the right-hand side here. I think this guy patrols. Never mind, he's always there. But yeah, grab the Overseer and more of the carriers. Again, they will patrol a little bit, so you might have to run and go grab these. But do pretty much the same pull. Again, interrupt the Venom Volley, get the carriers, make sure that the tank is able to move when he needs to move. And then we will go over to the left side, grab a bunch more of these drones, which don't really do a whole lot. And then it'll be the same thing, but just with 2 kicks on the Overseers. So 2 Venom Volleys to interrupt, and you should be all good. That should be count, and then we'll go into the final boss. You can also change this around a little bit. Sometimes you won't do this Overseer. If you have Lust up, and maybe it's like a 12-minute timer left on the key or something like that, you can go ahead and do the left side first, go into boss, lust the boss, and then do trash afterwards. That also works, and that ends up being the timing that I've had to do with a lot of Pugs anyway. Go into the Harvester boss. This boss is interesting, so I'm sure there's a guide on YouTube that will explain how to do this boss. It's not very challenging. People make it really challenging, but again, poison dispels are fantastic. It will make your healer's job unbelievably easy. So if you have a Resto Shaman or even like an Elemental Shaman with the poison cleanse totem, if you have a Paladin, if you have a Druid, you will take so much less damage on this boss, and it really just becomes not getting sucked into the void. So that's the route though, and this route works. I've done it plenty of times, and the only things that have really wiped me are getting too greedy on this first pull and the Stag Shell cast going off. So as long as you're doing those, you should be all good. Hope you guys liked the video. Like and subscribe if you want to see more, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.